Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football leagues with Nick Giacobbe and Nick Cap. From breakouts to busts, superstars to sleepers, these are the guys that will help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome everybody to Season 4, Episode 2 of the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we can help you prevail throughout the 2024 fantasy football season. I'm your host, Nick Giacobbe. Joining me is Nick Cap. Nick, we're past the 4th of July, middle of July. Fantasy football season is almost in full effect at this point. We're right on the cusp of it. I think we're 15 days away from the Hall of Fame game. So we're right there. We've almost made it to the offseason, and we're getting into football season.
Yeah, Nick and I always say it's always football season, but, it's not always active football season. There's always news. There's always notes. There's always free agency draft, something to get excited about, lists to make, fun to have, fantasy drafts to be made. But June, July, that's kind of when it gets slow and when we got to report on Aaron Rodgers in Egypt. So we're really excited that we're getting close to the season, especially my guys. We got to get to week 1 without focusing about all the nonsense outside.
I'm a big Jet fan week 1. Big time Jet fan for week 1.
Oh, yeah?
Big time Jet fan.
I like it.
Big time. All right. So thank you guys that are joining us. You could find us on all social media platforms. You could also find us on all of your favorite podcast platforms. If you'd rather watch and listen to the show, go to our YouTube channel. If you're a first-time listener or watcher, thank you so much for joining. Make sure to like us, subscribe, follow anywhere that we are. We also do a live show during the season, Sunday mornings. We haven't decided on a time yet. It's usually a little bit earlier on the Sunday mornings before your ESPN and NFL does kick off, but we'll give you guys a time weeks in advance. It's our live show. We answer all of your questions. That show is on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, so make sure to join us every single Sunday to get your lineups right, bright, and early. For today's show, we're going to do a mock draft 2.0. We did our first mock draft a couple weeks ago, right before the 4th of July. Took a little break for the holidays. This will be our mock draft 2.0. We like to do our mock drafts on Sleeper. It's a really fun platform, our preferred platform, I think. The draft board it's nice that you have an actual draft board. I think that's one of the perks of Sleeper, as silly as that sounds. We like having our draft board. So we're going to go through our draft. We both randomized where we're picking from. So Nick is going to be picking from the 3rd slot. I'm going to be picking from the 9 slot. I think in our last mock, where were you? You were 11, I think, and I was 6. So you got a little bit of a different perspective. The board has also changed. You're going to see the board change just about every week, and that's why we like to do mock drafts just about every week. A guy that you like, I'm just going to scroll down as you can see. Maybe there's a sleeper that you like at pick 83. Maybe you really like Raheem Mostert in round 8 or 9. He might go round 6 come late August, when most of us will be doing our actual draft. So without further ado, I am going to click the actually I think Nick has to click the start draft, and we'll get going.
All right.
And the sounds are off. Sounds are off this time.
We got it right. So like Nick said, 3rd pick. This season, more than ever before, it has been a running back, a wide receiver heavy season. And for me, if it's not Christian McCaffrey in the top probably 6 or 7 picks, I don't want a running back. If I'm looking at the board, it's definitely between CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill. I'm definitely going to lean on CeeDee Lamb over Tyreek this year. I know Nick and I, we have our own bonus leagues, and we love the way that works. But unfortunately, that's not all models. They're not all made equal. And CeeDee Lamb right now is probably one of the top 3, 4, 5 receivers in football. He's the only target on that offense. Maybe Ferguson, if you really want to count him, but it really is the CeeDee Lamb show over there in Dallas. I'm totally expecting him to get like 180 to 200 targets. And Nick and I, we love full PPR. That's exactly where we live. It's more fun with more points in fantasy. And CeeDee Lamb, last season's wide receiver 1, copy paste, take him for this year.
I think my favorite 2 picks in this top 10 are CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know it's easy to say that in 2 of the top 3, but, to piggyback off of Nick's point, I think I'd have CeeDee as my wide receiver 1. Not only does he not have a lot of competition as a receiving threat, but they lost Tony Pollard. They don't have a running back 1. It's gonna be a running back by committee. Dak Prescott always throws a ton of yards. He's just gonna gobble up targets. And Amon-Ra St. Brown was one of my favorite picks last year. I took him in 2 leagues, and I'm jealous that I'm not gonna get him this year, probably. Well, 2 of my leagues are randomized draft orders, so we'll see. Sitting here at 9, all those receivers went. I have Breece Hall sitting here. I'm just going to pick him. I'm not even going to really delve into it, but I think Breece Hall's a slam dunk pick. We haven't seen a running back go back to back as the number 1 running back in a long time. I forget who the last one was. It might have been LT. I saw a stat on Twitter. Should have written it down.
It's over 20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago, I think. So if you're just banking on like history, McCaffrey's not going to repeat as your running back 1. I think Breece Hall's a guy that could be a running back 1. I think I took him in our last mock at pick 6. I love Breece, and if you don't get one of these guys or Chase, if you don't get any of these 4 receivers or Chase, I really love both Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson. Breece Hall a little bit more. I don't think Rodgers is throwing for 4,000 yards. I think the Jets' recipe for success this season, if the Jets are going to have the most successful season in maybe 50 years, they have to run the ball. They have to play good defense.
Yeah.
So wrapping back around, I would really like to take a receiver here. I don't love my options. I really don't love Devontae Adams. Don't really love Drake London. Don't really love Olave. I just don't love the options. But at this point, you're going to take best available. Devontae Adams still just garner up a lot of targets. There is just nobody over there. I do have concerns about who's throwing him the ball, but I've seen much less talented wide receivers have really successful fantasy seasons with terrible quarterbacks. I don't love it, but I do like Adams more than the other players that I could have picked at this position and at this juncture.
I think Adams is the right pick there for you too. I mean, if you go running back in the first round, you need to go receiver in the second round, or else you're getting probably someone that's going to finish, unless if they go absolutely nuclear, outside of the top 15. So I agree with the pick there. I think Adams.
I will say, last point, I wouldn't have minded swapping A.J. Brown in the first round and Jonathan Taylor in the second, but you can't do it like that. You don't know what's going to happen. So
never know how the board's going to fall. So in my spot, I do like stacking receiver, but when I look at the top of the board, I see Drake London, who, as I've mentioned for years, not too big of a fan of. I do think that he could be a good value in fantasy with Kirk Cousins this year, but not at the end of the second round. I think.
Where do you think Drake London would go if Kirk Cousins was not the quarterback?
Probably somewhere. Well, it depends. If they were rolling back Heineke,
let's say if they roll back Heineke,
5th, 6th round.
Yeah.
I think right now you're probably taking Drake London at or very close to what his ceiling could be, and that's just not a good recipe for fantasy football. So I am going to look to go and pivot to the running back position here. There is one guy that I do have at the bottom of the second tier for my rankings, in Josh Jacobs. I do want to follow the money. He's going to Green Bay. That team looked very explosive on the back half of the year. Aaron Jones playoff game, 3 or 4 touchdowns, I believe, against Dallas. So Jacobs is going to slot into that role. It will be his sole backfield. And Nick and I always said, we said it last year and it worked for guys like David Montgomery. Go follow the money. If you're going to get paid $12 million a year like Josh Jacobs is, and you're going to a very young, healthy offense with a very smart offensive coach, Josh Jacobs literally has a recipe for success here, and he should finish inside the top 10 if he gets the healthy reps.
And there's some really solid running backs here. Nick might want to double up on running backs. If he's not, I'll talk about it, but I'll let Nick take it away for his next pick.
Yeah, I do think I'm going to pivot back to receiver just on how the board fell. I do think Achane would have been the guy if it made it back to me. And I am going to take a 1Z position. I'm going to take Josh Allen. Most touchdowns in the league. Most total touchdowns, I believe, last season and last 2 seasons, last 3, last 4. Between the ground and passing combination, he has been lethal. And he's been a top 3 QB locked and loaded for 4 straight seasons. There is no reason not to trust him to finish at that level. And I know taking a QB early, it's not as desirable, but I do think the gap between Josh Allen, Lamar, Jalen Hurts between the next tier is such a big gap. And by the time I get back to me, CJ Stroud is probably going to be the best available on the board. And I don't like CJ Stroud's value.
So I personally like a lot of these running backs in this range. I think Josh Jacobs is a great pick. I think Derrick Henry's an awesome pick in that Ravens offense. A couple of receivers just went. So I have decisions to make because I do like a lot of these running backs. I love Joe Mixon this year. I love his value, especially around 5. Follow the money. Love Rashad White, James Cook. This tier of running backs I think is awesome. But I do have a running back, and I do see receivers that I really like here. Mike Evans was just spoon-fed targets from Baker Mayfield, and I just don't see that changing. Michael Pittman, another wide receiver one. I really would like to go with Pittman. But I'm not sure what we're going to see from the quarterback situation over there with the Colts. I know Anthony Richardson's coming back from the injury, but I don't know what we're getting from him. I know what we'll get from Baker. I know what we're going to get from Mike Evans. 10 straight seasons of 1,000 yards. I'm totally cool with making him my wide receiver too. Cooper Kupp's another one that I easily could have targeted there. So all those receivers went. So now it's running back time. And I do have some tough decisions here because I do like a lot of these backs. Rashad White was great last year, but I'm not going to double up on Bucks. James Cook had a really good role last year with the Buffalo Bills, and they lost Stephon Diggs, even though Diggs was kind of phased out of the offense for the last few weeks. But I did talk a lot about Mixon. I like the fact that they paid him. I like the fact that offense is going to be really explosive. I like that offense is going to score a lot of points. And I think that offense will be up in a lot of games, actually, especially within their division. They're going to have to chew the clock out. So I'm going to take Joe Mixon, but I really do like Kenneth Walker as well. I know I'm kind of glazing over a lot of these guys, but I like the value right now that I'm seeing on the board. And basically, I'm not disappointed with a lot of these guys, and I see a lot of value, which is a good thing.
So looking at the top of my board, there's 3 tight ends. I already took a 1Z position in quarterback. I think if you stack QB tight end, not from the same team, but just take 2 early, you miss out on a lot of value at running back and receiver. I think I can make it back up later in the draft at tight end. And the running back I do really like here is James Cook, but I'm not going to stack James Cook with Josh Allen, who I just took. So I am going to go for the best receiver on the board in DK Metcalf, one of Nick's Seahawks. I think he's a phenomenal talent. He's clearly explosive. He has those individual weeks where he will win you a game. With Geno at quarterback, it's not going to always be consistent, but if you're taking him to be the number 2 to CeeDee Lamb, who, like I said earlier, is probably going to get an average of 10 catches a game, I'm more than happy, or 8 to 10 catches a game. I'm more than happy to lock in DK at wide receiver too.
I also think the Seahawks are going to be down in a lot of games. I think they're only going to win 7 games or so. As much as I love my Seahawks, they lost a lot of defensive pieces. This is a little bit of a rebuild that they're dealing with now. So I think they'll be down in a lot of games. Geno has proved he's capable of throwing the football and scoring points. So that works in DK Metcalf's favor.
Now looking at the top of the board, there is not the only running back I really like at the top here is Kenneth Walker. But again, I just took DK. So do I really want 2 Seahawks with a rookie defensive coach? Probably not. So now I'll pivot to flex. I'll take a look at the top receivers. Tank Dell, wide receiver, 3 on his team. George Pickens. I don't care what anyone tells me about Russell Wilson and what he's going to do in with the Steelers. It's a copy and paste of exactly what we thought. Russell Wilson going to 2 good receivers in Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, joining Sean Payton, legendary coach. And we've watched 2 straight seasons of horrible seasons for him. And now he's going to Mike Tomlin, defensive coach, Arthur Smith. No one trusted him as an offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. And you're going to tell me I do believe George Pickens is more talented than Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. But you're telling me that George Pickens is going to finish as a top receiver after I watched Russ let him down too many times? Absolutely not taking him there. I am going to take somebody that I think is falling down the boards way too far, and I think his ADP is going to adjust for next season. T. Higgins, for 3 straight seasons, was drafted in the 2nd and 3rd rounds of fantasy football drafts, and only one of those times he did not deliver on his ADP. If you can go get him in the 5th round as your wide receiver 3, he is a smash home run play at that ADP. He is a 1,000-yard receiver. He is playing for a contract. He's one of Joe Burrow's guys, and if Joe Burrow is healthy, we know the Bengals are lethal. T. Higgins is bound for another great season as long as injury doesn't halt him like it did at other points. So if I'm going to take him as the wide receiver 3 on my team, absolutely no problem. I think it's a tremendous value at this point.
I agree with you. I also think Keenan Allen's a really good value. He's coming off his best statistical season, I think, ever. I know he got traded to the Bears. I know that is a bit of a crowded offense, but they traded for him. The Bears wanted him, and there's a lot of talent there. So I think Keenan Allen at wide receiver 2 on his team in round, what are we in, 5? I think that's really good value. So I'm up now. There's another bear here, Odunze. Odunze is this year's JSN, in my opinion. Really, really talented, but there were 2 other really talented receivers on his own team. I think it's going to be tough for him to compete for targets. I do need a quarterback. I do need a tight end. I'm going to take a quick look. And if you look at the ADP, I would be kind of reaching for a quarterback at this point. However, in your normal drafts, more quarterbacks are going to go. So I'm just going to get it out of the way, kind of assuming right now that, that in a normal fantasy draft, quarterbacks are going to start going, since I don't really like the board. There is a player that I do like at the moment, but I'm going to pass for now. So we're going to go with Joe Burrow in round 6, and we'll see if the guy that I wanted wraps back. All right, so he did. So I am eyeing Jaden Reed here. It's a little bit of a risk, but I think he's Jordan Love's favorite target. I think we're going to see a leap from Jordan Love. I know he had a stellar season last year, probably exceeded a lot of expectations. So I'm going to take a little bit of a swing here at my wide receiver 3. I know I'm drafting over a couple other guys that are proven, but I'm okay with that risk, knowing that Green Bay is expected to take a big leap. I love the offensive coordinator. I love the coach. And I think that's the guy that I want. I want a piece of that Green Bay offense.
So in our format, we have 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 receiver, 1 tight end, 2 flex. So I don't need to go running back here, even though I've only drafted 1. I can still go towards that hero format. And there's 2 guys at the top of the running back board I like. I like Najee. I like Tony Pollard. I think both of them are values. We talked about chasing the money. Tony Pollard just got a bag from the Titans. And the Titans, I don't know if they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to have one of the worst records in football. But that offense has 3 great pieces in Tony Pollard, DeAndre Hopkins, and Calvin Ridley. So if Will Levis can be anything better than Zach Wilson, that offense is loaded enough where I do expect a running back to get some value and some points. And Najee Harris is inheriting Arthur Smith. So you're looking at one of the guys that had 3 running backs have at least good fantasy seasons. They might not have delivered on ADP, but if you're looking at Najee Harris this late in the draft, in the back end of the 6th, early 7th, I think it's a good value. But seeing 2 backs on the board that I like, and there are more down the board that I do like for an RB2, I am going to take a little bit of a risk, and I'm going to lock in tight end here. Actually, so this is one of the benefits of Sleeper. You can see the draft board. I do see that team 1 and team 2 already took a tight end. So I don't need to take tight end here. Evan Ingram will wrap to me. So I will take the running back I prefer, and I prefer the money, and give me Tony Pollard. And because they both took tight end, they pass, and I will get my guy in Evan Ingram in the 7th round.
And I'll also be looking at a tight end pretty soon. All right, so I'm now looking at my board. Brock Bowers is right there. I have a Raider, but Brock Bowers is right there, and I need a tight end. I'm looking at my other options. Don't love Najee, quarterbacks. Don't love Mostert. McConkey is interesting, but I could get him back on my wrap, assuming nobody reaches for him. Again, don't love the board. I'm going to take the position of need. I really don't want 2 Raiders. There's a good chance I could chop Devontae Adams or Bowers right after the draft at this point. But I'm going to take my best available position. I'm going to take a player that I do want to take a solid shot on. So I have my 2. I have my 2 running backs. I'm okay with waiting a bit. I don't love a lot of the running backs on the board at the moment. Lade McConkey did go, but I'm going to take another rookie that I'm pretty high on, and that's Brian Thomas. I know they have Christian Kirk over there still, who's been a really stellar player, but they went and drafted this guy in round 1. They just gave Trevor Lawrence a lot of money as well. I think this is a guy, especially in Dynasty, is one that I'd really love to try to get. But for now, I'm okay with putting him as my wide receiver 4, knowing that he could break out a little bit later on in the season.
So I'm taking a look at the top of my board and filling out the rest of the starting spots. I just need a flex to fill out the starters outside of kicker and defense, which you wait till your last 2 rounds to do so. And there's one guy here that I think chases upside. In my team, I'm just looking for upside. You only look for upside when you're later in the draft. I'm going to look to stack my quarterback and who would have been a first round wide receiver pick if the Buffalo Bills stayed in the first round. I'm going to go with Keon Coleman, who's
It's a
been
great pick.
all the hype out of
Great pick.
Buffalo.
I don't think he's going to be drafted at 100 come August. I think he's going to be closer to 70 or 80.
Definitely not. And I'm going to take another rookie here. I did follow the money, but I will say historically, running backs on their second team, not as great as they were on their first team, even though I do think both have great value. I'm going to go for another rookie because statistically, 2 running backs for the last 10 years have finished inside the top 24. So if you're taking a rookie running back outside the top 24, there's always a shot that they could finish that high. And I'm looking at somebody that has a great shot to take over the starting role for a veteran running back. I'm looking at Trey Benson out of Arizona.
Zach Moss is a really good pick later on in this draft as well.
Yeah.
Kudos to the other team. All right. So I'm looking for upside now, and I don't see a lot of it. Singletary, you got to know what we're getting, but he is a running back 1, so there's something to consider. Jamison Williams, Brian Robinson. So I'm not liking a lot of what I'm seeing. I do need another running back, even if I don't love a lot of these. I'm going to take Gus Edwards. He's a guy that I've quietly been targeting. Again, follow the money. The Chargers paid a couple different running backs. This is one of the ones that they paid, but I think he'll also have a lot of goal line work. So I'm going to go with the guy that I think will have a more touchdown upside. And let's see what I want to do here. Blake Corum, I don't want to get Kyron Williams back up. Don't like that. Chase Brown, since he's back up, not a fan. Not a fan of most of these running backs at this point. Have my quarterback, have my tight end. So let's see what receiver I like. Let us go, because I do like rookies. Let's go with Adonai Mitchell on the Colts. They don't really have a number 2 pass catcher. Young quarterback who probably still Pittman's the number 1 guy, but he hasn't really found his targets yet in terms of Anthony Richardson. I'm going to hope that he meshes with the rookie.
Here I am going to go for Blake Corum. My only fear with the Rams and with Kyron Williams, and Kyron is phenomenal. I think if he stays healthy, is a top 5 running back. Do not get me wrong on that. But Kyron Williams has been a 1-season wonder to this point of his career, and he's dealt with injury concerns. So if Blake Corum gets the spot, and Blake Corum was a highly touted running back, not this past season, but the year before, he was all the talk of the running back room for this year's draft, and he slipped down the draft board this season. I do think that Blake Corum poses some potential upside, and probably will lock in to be the full-time starter if Kyron misses a week or 2. So I have no problem taking the risk, I guess, this late in the draft on the rookie running back. And I'm going to take Jerome Ford, the week 1 starter for the Cleveland Browns. If Tony Pollard is not the guy and they go with Tajay Spears, I have someone I can confidently trust and start as long as Nick Chubb is not there.
You love having a brownie on your team.
Of course.
I think Mike Williams is a good pick late in this draft too, and Curtis Samuel. Those are 2 wide receiver 2s that could be fed a lot of targets.
I agree.
All right, I'm going to go with I'm just going to keep ripping the rookies at this point. I'm going to go with Xavier Legette from Carolina. Bryce Young had a very rough rookie season, but I believe the Panthers traded up to get Legette.
Yep.
Listen, if Bryce Young's going to have any kind of success in this league, even as a backup, he's going to have to learn to throw the ball. He's going to have to find targets that he likes. So I'll take a shot there at who could potentially be the wide receiver 1 on his team. All right, I'm going to take a quick look at quarterback. Now, in a 12-person league, it is kind of good to have a good backup quarterback. So I think I'm going to go with a backup here because I don't like a lot of my options on the board right now. It is really slim picking. So I am going to go with a quarterback. So I'm just going to double check Burrow's bye week. I want to see where they show it.
They don't show the 2024 schedule on Sleeper.
So we're going to do a quick Google search.
Well, on top of that, I mean, it's also safe because, Joe Burrow does not have the most healthy history. So I do think Nick's making the right call here, looking for a solid quarterback to shore up at least.
All right. So it is week 12. I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford, who's just he is as long as he's on the field, kind of the same thing. When he's on the field, he does throw for a lot of yards. He's reliable on two really good pass catchers in both Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. I don't see that changing. And the Rams will be very competitive this year.
Looking at the board,
I wanted Kirk Cousins, but went before me.
Yeah. Looking at my board, of course, we're this late in the draft. There's not too much talent, but again, we're chasing starters on highly touted offenses. That's what you're really looking for, or someone that's going to get all the targets, all the rushing attempts. Rico Dowdle out of Dallas has the best shot to come out of week 1, week 2 as the full-time starting running back. And if not, we'll know very early on if he's cuttable for the top free agent pick. Someone that's going in the 500 range at the moment that no one's ever going to think about until they put up a 30-point week 1. Like it always happens every year. I always recommend don't only take rookies this late in the draft because you do need to know, like Justin Jefferson, it took him a few weeks before you were able to play him, but there are people that cut him after week 1, week 2 for better options, right? It happens. It's a rookie. You have to give it weeks to develop, time to cook in the oven, right? Unfortunately, Rico Dowdle, he has not proven himself to be a starter. He's not proven himself to be a backup, and he's not a rookie. So you're going to know very early on. It's his role or it's not. You could cut him, pick up your waiver guy. So that's kind of the route I want to take here. Now I'm in between two guys. Nick's got me thinking backup quarterback, and who better than my guy out of New York, Aaron Rodgers, or looking to Josh Palmer, one of my guys. I have gone running back quite heavy the last few rounds, and I still am a Josh Palmer believer this late in the draft. I'm going to give it a shot, and we'll figure out backup quarterback later.
All right. I am also looking for upside, looking for guys that can play in my flex. I do like Marshawn Lloyd. Jahan Dotson's another one. I'm going to go with Brandon Cooks, though. He's been a bit reliable. Again, there's just not many pass catchers there in Dallas. I don't have a Cowboy. I think they're going to throw the ball a lot, score a lot of points. So I want to get a Cowboy on my team, even if it's just as a backup, somebody to kind of sit on my bench. All right. This is where things are getting really, really slim. Don't like a lot. I mean, just really, there's nothing to really love. But I'm going to take a Jet. I'm going to take the rookie for the Jets. Listen, I'm okay with taking my shots on rookies later on in the draft. Will he make my roster by week 6? No, but in round 14 of a 12-man, I'm okay with just throwing darts at rookies when this is the board that we're looking at.
I'm looking at the board, and to me, there's one quarterback that sticks out as a guy that could be on an offense to score multiple touchdowns multiple weeks in a row, and has proven it in the league and has been good for the last few seasons. I'm going to take Baker Mayfield to back up Josh Allen. And, we're starting to see some of these kickers go. If it's your home league, somebody's drafting Justin Tucker by the 6th, 7th round just because, best kicker on the board, best available, got to fill out the starters. There's always one guy in every league. So you're probably not on the board at this point. Like Nick and I said, 16, 17, that's where we look for to fill out the starters and just get the kicker defense in there. So I'm just looking and I'm saying, who can I convince myself is a good flex play that could have a shot to be a starter, a full-time starter? There's one guy that I guess has a shot. We're going to go for Tyrone Tracy, New York Giants rookie running back. Again, chasing starters at this point of the draft, chasing upside. And very early on, we're going to know if it's Singletary or they're going to pass the ball to the little kid.
Let's keep the rookies going. Bucky Irving is somebody who's gotten a lot of love lately. And I do like Rachaad White, so I don't see that changing. But if Rachaad White does go down, Bucky Irving can step right in. But Elijah Mitchell's also hovering right there. I'm going to go with Elijah Mitchell because if McCaffrey does go down, and McCaffrey's had a good chunk of injuries in his career, and he's also on the cover of Madden. Do want to remind people of that. I think Elijah Mitchell immediately takes over that backfield. So now we're looking at defense and kickers. So I'm just going to check my phone real quick and go to the NFL Week 1 schedule because I am a defensive streamer. So for Week 1, I'm looking at whoever's playing the Panthers or the Patriots. I think the Panthers is the Saints.
Yep.
Let's see. Where's the Saints defense? Actually, your Jets have a really good schedule. Who are they facing week? Oh, they have the Niners week 1.
Yeah.
I don't like that, but I don't like that, but I would like to keep the Jets defense on my roster. So I'm going to draft the Jets defense, and then I'll figure it out from there. I'll probably drop somebody, pick up another defense or something like that for week 1.
I'm also looking for defense. Like Nick said, I think he made the right call taking the good defense. I am going to go with the streaming defense, though. And the team expected to score the least amount of points in week 1 based on spread, based on over-under, is the New England Patriots, and they're going up against what's a much improved Cincinnati Bengals team. I am going to take them, and I'm going to ride the stream. I'm going to drop them after week 1, and I'm going to look to the week 2 schedule. And again, filling out the kickers. For me, I like taking a kicker that's on an explosive offense, and Miami, electric, absolutely always puts up points. They do not go for it on 4th down with Tua. They don't risk the QB sneak. They take their points when they can get them. So we're going to go with Jason Sanders.
There is no kickers here, like on an explosive offense. I don't know how many kickers have been taken in this draft, but Indiana, Seattle, Tennessee. I don't even recognize most of these names, honestly, which is really funny. And part of this, I think, is because a lot of teams haven't figured out who their starting kicker is going to be.
So the highest projected on the board still left is Greg the Leg from the Jets. And then after that is Michael Bagley out of Detroit, who's probably the better option. Number 780 on the board. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, I'm just going to take Daniel Carlson for now, another Raider, but this is the pick that I'm least worried about at the moment. So this is our draft board for Mock Draft 2.0. Nick, I'll let you go first and kind of talk about your team and what you think.
I love it. I mean, I'm much happier with this team than I was Mock Draft 1.0. Personally, I do like taking at the beginning of the draft, as most do. I do think solidifying a star very early on. And to me, CeeDee Lamb, I do think he's the wide receiver 1 this season. I think he's got the most upside. He's got the most explosive offense where he will be the only target. Dallas has won 12 games and put up the most points in the league for multiple years in a row. Their first season last season without Kellen Moore, and they put up the most points in the league. I do think that CeeDee Lamb has so much upside, and locking him in at wide receiver 1 is great. Taking Jacobs, getting the upside at running back. Again, I said it earlier, love it. Josh Allen, I think for me, with my first 3 picks, I truly think I have a shot to have the QB1, RB1, and wide receiver 1 in fantasy. So that's always a good story for me. And listen, I feel like I got some high upside guys that got the money, got the bag, got the looks in Tony Pollard, DK Metcalf, T. Higgins playing for a contract. Evan Engram was explosive last year, won a lot of people a lot of individual weeks. And then it's all upside after that to me. It's a lot of rookies. It's a lot of got even veterans like Jerome Ford, where I know he's going to start. Josh Palmer is going to have an 80% plus timeshare on the field. So I'm very happy with the way the draft felt to me.
Yeah, I think my pick 6 to 8 here would make or break my team. If the rookies and Jalen Reed have their breakouts, I'll have an excellent team. If they don't, it's gonna be really tough for me to compete on a week-to-week basis. I am happy that I waited on my quarterback, and I'm happy that I waited on my tight end, as those are 2 things I did not do in Mock Draft 1.0. I do wish my wide receiver 1 was not Devontae Adams, but he's still Devontae Adams. He's still going to garner a lot of targets, could still get traded. So I'll live with that. So that was our Mock Draft 2.0. That is Primetime Fantasy Podcast Season 4, Episode 2. Thank you all for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to drop a like on this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. On any audio streaming platform that you're listening on, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. For all social media platforms, you can find us, follow us, like us, retweet. We're on every single platform you could possibly find. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting, and we'll talk to you guys very soon.